Thanks so much, everyone, for watching. We've got an epic lineup tonight of speakers. We've got an awesome panel here. Amazing group of functional doctors, technology, activists for a leap forward in medicine.
You know, our goal is to make it easy for practitioners to learn in community.
This ecosystem that is being set up by the meetup groups, we believe will be the future ecosystem of this evolved primary care network, and it all revolves around you.
Welcome to the Functional Forum. Thanks for joining us in the charge to accelerate the evolution of medicine. Please welcome your host, James Maskell.
Welcome to the Functional Forum. We are here in St. Louis, Missouri for a SlIim dinner. Now, when we started the Functional Forum in 2014, there were hardly any meetup groups anywhere around the country where practitioners were getting together, but one was already here. Kristen Brokaw started it, and it's still going. And so tonight we are here. We're going to be doing a Functional Forum. We got some great speakers. Enjoy. Back in 2014, if you can remember all the way back then, there wasn't a lot of functional medicine going on, right? And this SlIim existed, but if you just didn't happen to live in St. Louis, you didn't have a lot of good community support, right? You didn't know other practitioners, and you weren't being supported by those practitioners. And back then, it was pretty easy to think that you might be insane if you were doing functional medicine, because you would go and see your colleagues and you'd be like, you know, I changed this person's diet and their autoimmune markers seem to have gone down quite a lot. Have you ever seen anything like that? And all your internist friends would be like, no. We all know autoimmune disease is not reversible. So you needed to come once a month, once a quarter to an event like this. And that's how the Functional Forum started. It was a meetup just like this in New York for functional medicine doctors. And it was just the right thing at the right time. Back then we had Daft Punk intro music, and we just wanted to make it cool and sexy and aspirational to be a functional medicine doctor, and to make it easy for practitioners to get out of their day jobs and start to do, to practice in a new way. So I want to tell you about what's happening and what we're doing in the new environment, because the Functional Forum was created for that moment, and it's part of a business called the Evolution of Medicine, and that's about medicine adapting to its new environment. The environment has changed, so what does it look like now? So the reason why I'm going home is because on Saturday, I'm doing this. I'm putting on this in the county that I live in, so Healthy El Dorado. And Healthy El Dorado, the vision here, so the reason why in El Dorado County, there's a lot of really good functional medicine doctors. Why? Because one of them, 15 years ago, took a moment to say, hey, we should get a community together. And they had a community just like this that ran for a decade. And so the whole point of this new era, which I'm calling healthy, and then add wherever you are, is to take the medicine to the people, right? To actually show people what this looks like. The community, the world out there is hungry for it. You know, this is the first time, like when I first started in this industry, functional medicine was mainly happening in like hippie towns, Ashland, Oregon, or Asheville, North Carolina, or Austin, Texas, and it hadn't really reached, maybe in big cities too. But now look at this. We're in St. Louis, we're in the middle of the country, and there's incredible functional medicine on every corner, so many great practitioners. So I think it's time to take the medicine to the people. And look, the whole point is to let, like, what I experienced when I moved to this county 4 years ago is that even though there are incredible functional medicine practitioners in that area, the average person on the street didn't know about the broader salutogenic arts, right? The farms, that there's a CrossFit segment that I didn't put in there. Think about all the people that are in the service of health. And so the purpose of this event is to create a model, just like the Functional Forum was a model, right? We created a model where groups like this could exist in cities around the country and around the world. We had 400 at the top that when we had the most in like 2017, 18. Our hope is that, people will take the step-by-step guide that we've created and do this in their county. We've already got Jefferson County, Colorado, Colorado. We've got Healthy Kansas City, I think, happening. So this is, using the moment that we have to take the medicine to the people. So that's what's happening with the Functional Forum. Tonight, I'm super excited to showcase talent. That's what we've always done here at the Functional Forum, is showcase talent. We got two incredible local practitioners, doctors, who are on the cutting edge of different clinical areas. And the theme of tonight is the heart of community health. I think all of us need to think about how we can put ourselves right at the center of that. So who better than to start then with a cardiologist dealing with heart issues all the time. Please welcome to the stage our favorite integrative cardiologist from the area, Dr. Mike Twyman.
Well, good evening, everyone. Kristen invited me to be a part of this adventure, and I just asked her, what am I talking about? And she said, biohacking or longevity. So here we go. So it's been quite a while since I've been in SlIim. I think it's been over 11 years now, which is amazing. But for those that don't know me, I'm Mike Twyman. I'm a cardiologist here in St. Louis. I own Apollo Cardiology, and I help people not have heart attacks and strokes. So 10, 11 years ago, I didn't know any of this stuff. I came to one of these meetings and sat there and be like, I have a lot of learning to do. And in 10 years, I've done a decent amount, I believe. But I do remember back in 2017, some people have heard this story, but this is the genesis of my biohacking story. So there was a SlIim dinner, and it was the night before I was going to leave town and go to Bali. Oh, actually, this one was going to Thailand at this point. And it's a 12-hour flight or so to Thailand. I knew the jet lag would be pretty bad. So I was just trying to figure out, how am I not going to die from this jet lag? So just started doing the Google machine, figuring the things out. And then come upon an article, and it's written by Dave Asprey, who I didn't know who he was. And he's selling some crazy glasses. I'm like, those look interesting. He says it works for jet lag. Let me just buy those things. So I buy them. I don't understand them. I just read it as wear it on the plane. So I wear some glasses on the plane, and some people have seen the picture before, but I literally look like the Unabomber. I had a hoodie on. I didn't want any light in my eyes. I didn't understand why the light was bad, but I was like, I'm supposed to wear these. Jet lag's not going to be bad. So get to Asia. It's middle of the night there. Next morning, sun comes up. I'm outside. And I also randomly heard him talk about grounding's good for you. And I had no idea what that meant. So I remember going out with my wife, Kim, around some little side yard. We take our shoes off. We're like, I guess this is grounding. How long do we do this for? I think we did 3 or 4 minutes, throw our socks on, and let's go explore the city. And I was tired, but I always tell people it was about a third as bad as I expected. The jet lag was a lot less than I had previously experienced. I'm like, that's crazy. I don't understand why that worked, but let's go enjoy Thailand and then ultimately Bhutan and Tibet. And we had a great time. But when I came back, much like I normally do, time to go down a rabbit hole. So deep down in a rabbit hole of how light affects your biology. And thus, for most people in this room, unless they met me before 2017, they've probably never seen my actual eyes. So this is just kind of my trademark. And my circadian rhythms are the most important thing I try to manage every single day. So while I do help people have, the benefits of not hopefully having a heart attack or stroke at an early age, and that may be why most patients are coming to see me at this point, I always end up talking to them about mitochondrial health, because if your mitochondria don't work well, you're not going to live very long. But then I always break it down to my kind of 4 pillars of optimal health. And many of these things, you guys are experts at. So it's nutrition, it's exercise, stress management, and sleep. And the more that I kind of read about this, the more I probably realize sleep is actually the foundation and the other 3 sit on top of it. So most patients, when they come to see me, I'm not the first cardiologist they've seen. I'm generally not the first functional person they've seen. They usually have most of their nutrition ideas right, and some have some decent ideas on exercise, and I usually put them in the right direction. So I usually break it down and then go in order. So nutrition, I tell people I'm not a nutritionist. I don't pretend to be one. I just have some 3 basic rules that I want people to focus on initially, and then we'll get into it based off their genetics and their goals. I want them to optimize their protein for their skeletal muscle mass, because without skeletal muscle mass, you're not going to age well if you become sarcopenic and metabolically unwell. You need DHA for your eyes and brain. I've heard the stat that 60% of your retina and 30% of your brain has DHA. So without DHA, those organs aren't going to work optimally. And then I'm very big about just seasonal and time-appropriate eating. So tell people, Your best feeding window is sun up to sundown because that's what the gut wants to understand. It's daytime or it's nighttime. If you want to eat in a compressed window after that, fine, but don't eat when it's too late and try not to eat 3 to 4 hours before bed. Then, tracking. I don't track calories. I don't have the discipline to do that, but there's great apps out there people want to. So Chronometer. I personally like the Carbon app because most of the foods are already in there, but you can scan them and it's used very well by many patients, and a lot of education in the Carbon app and Chronometer apps. But many of my patients come in and they're also interested in using continuous glucose monitors. And I played around with a lot of the Freestyle Libres, and I think everybody who has ever used one finds one of two things. It's you find the foods that you're more sensitive to, but then you figure out the lifestyle things that you're doing that are really breaking your glucose. It's not all about the carbohydrates coming in. It's the artificial light coming in your eyes at the wrong time of day, raising your cortisol and raising your blood sugar. It's the, hey, I'm only sleeping 6 hours a night and I probably really need 7.5, 8 hours in sleep. So I think continuous glucose monitors are useful for many people. I don't want them to panic that the results aren't perfect. It's just a tool. And then once you figure out what's driving your blood sugars, take the tool off. As for exercise, I was a college athlete. I played lacrosse, played tennis, but much like everybody, if I'm going to fall off any of my habits, it's generally my exercise routine. And I just freely admit that. I just fall out of the habit. But when I get back into it, I'm focusing on skeletal muscle and cardio. So I usually ask patients, tell me your time budget. How much can you work out in a week? Okay, half of it should be strength training. Half of it should be some type of cardio. Strength training is up to you. Just don't get hurt. And if you have injuries, go work with somebody who can design a program for you that you don't get injured again. Somebody in the audience. But for my strength training, I'm actually very lazy. I don't like to be in gyms, so I do it at home, or I go to very minimalist places that have devices, and I get out. So I do a lot of variable resistance training with either an X3 resistance band, or once a week I go do the what Asprey would call the cheat machine. He's now using a different vendor, but that's the ARX device, the adaptive resistance exercise device. I colloquially call it a trash compactor. So you're fighting a hydraulic machine. So there's no cheat sets. It's only one set till you fail. You're always going to fail with this. You can only do it one time a week because you completely burn out of your fast twitch muscles, and then it takes that much time to recover. But will you get super, muscular with this? Absolutely not. But you'll stay strong. You won't lose muscle mass. So I do that once a week. Bone health is important. Now, OsteoStrong is an interesting option for people. I've been doing it for a year and a half. Does it make you stronger? Probably not if you're generally decently fit, but it does help you potentially put more muscle on the bone that you do have. So I still do that once a week. That takes you a total of 7 minutes to do that. And then for cardio, if I get into the habit of doing it, the majority of the time I'm doing 80, 90% of my stuff is zone 2. And zone 2 is just low and steady state. It's generally relatively boring, but that's what your mitochondria need to be optimized to burning fat for fuel. So I just generally jump on a Peloton, chest strap, dial it in with the resistance, try to hit 128 beats per minute, which is about 60 to 70% of my maximal heart rate, and listen to a podcast or something, and then crank it out for 30, 45 minutes. Sometimes I'll do some zone 5s, if I'm lucky, maybe once a week. But that gets into tracking. I've probably played with more trackers than the majority of people. Some are better than others. The one that I find most interesting is probably the Oura Ring, which I've had for 8 years. I've slept very well for that entire time. So the majority of the time I don't actually wear it unless I'm trying to track something new. But last year they came out with a feature that looked at your cardio age, which is a metric of how stiff your arteries are. And I have many of those devices in my office. So patients would ask me well, does this Oura Ring track something like that? And generally, yes, it probably does. But the other cardio feature they added last year was the VO2 max. You do a 6-minute walk test, and then it's estimating what your VO2 max is. It's highly inaccurate in my opinion. If you really want a VO2 max to figure out how fit your mitochondria are, is go to a facility that can do an actual VO2 max, and there's a couple of them in town here. I've probably done 3 VO2 max in my life. I'm average at best. They're not very fun to do, but if you need to know the data, you can figure it out with some of these vendors. But the thing that I get asked the most about with Oura Ring is the HRV, heart rate variability. It's a good metric. It's a metric of how much stress your autonomic nervous system is sensing at that moment. But the Oura Ring is not super sensitive for everybody. It's measuring photoplasmography. It's using light to look at blood vessels expanding. It's not actually measuring the electrical activity as it comes off your heart. It's estimating that. So for people who say, my HRV is always low, it's never great, get a chest strap. You have to use a chest strap to get the electrical activity off your heart, and then use an appropriate app. I like the Elite HRV app because it's free for at least the base use. And that will tell you, are you actually overtraining, which extremely rare. I mean, I do work with some people who are former Olympians and stuff like that, but my greatest majority of people are under-exercised. They're rarely over-exercising. But HRV is a good metric to say, are you getting sick? I mean, I got sick about a month ago after coming back from Central America. I don't know what I got. I never get sick, but whenever I fly in planes to country far away, I catch something really weird. And I can see my HRV just plummeting for days. And, my Oura Ring, I usually have sleep scores in the mid-80s to like low 90s. I was having like 60s. And that felt horrible to me. I was like, oh, this is what bad sleep must be for the greatest majority of people. Okay, well, I got to teach them like how to get back up to an 80 or 90. But I got to experience it myself, I guess. But the Oura Ring, probably the best sleep tracker consumer-wise that I've still seen. And I've tried many of them. After the nutrition, exercise, we talk about stress. And everybody has their own stress mitigation techniques. A lot of times it's the exercise. Hopefully it's not the eating, but stress management, extremely important. I tell people we're all going to have stress. You're not going to be immune from it. It's the human condition to be stressed, but it's how do you recover from the stress? How do you get back to your baseline? So I meditate every day. It's probably the best habit I picked up 5-6 years ago. Works really well for me. But for some people, it just doesn't work, doesn't click. They don't know if it's working for them. So for those people, I really do like doing biofeedback with heart math. A lot of good data with heart math for helping people with sleep, blood pressure. It clips to your ear. It's a heart rate variability trainer. If you're under stress, it's going to be red, leads you through breathing exercises. It changes to green. So you feel what it's like to go into that rest and relaxation mode. So I have a lot of my patients try to utilize that if they can't wind down at night. So heart math, ballpark about $120 for their device. And then about 2 years ago, I got one of the Apollo neuro devices. My practice is Apollo Cardiology. People would ask me if I invented it. I wish I did not. But it's a wearable. It's in a form factor that's, on your wrist, or you can put it around your ankle. Looks kind of like a, alcohol, like home arrest bracelet or something like that. But it vibrates at different frequencies. And there's an app that then you can kind of utilize that can determine the intensity of the vibrations. And the science is interesting, but it has things where, you press like, make me more alert. And it does feel kind of like you're drinking caffeine. You're a little bit more alert after using it. There's wind me down after exercise. Okay, hit it. And it goes for like 15 to 30 minutes. But I always tell people like biohacks are, you're going to do some experiment and you're going to get a result and you like it or don't like it. Not everything that they're going to claim works for you. Because there was definitely one feature in there that was supposed to be open and clear communication. So if you're at some kind of networking event, you're supposed to run this little thing and you're supposed to be able to, meet and greet everybody. I did that once. I was completely mute for 30 minutes. I was a very good listener. I could understand everything. I did not feel like saying a single word to anybody. I was like, can't use that feature anymore. Turn that one off. So buyer beware, be a biohacker, figure out if it works for you. So that's stress, number 3. Now sleep. This is the thing that I think most people, if they're not doing well, this is where they should spend their time. So track if you need to, but if you're somebody who's very anxious and if you see a bad sleep score next day, you're going to have a bad day, stop using the tracker for a while. But it comes down to the basics. It's light hygiene. You need bright light early in the morning from the sun to enter your eyes, activate your supracosmic nucleus, and tell your body it's daytime. And the converse, your body needs darkness. So what we're doing right now, that thing's blasting 550 or 5,500 Kelvin probably or greater into my eyeballs right now, and it's trying to tell my body it's high noon. I would like to go to sleep after this meeting, so I'm going to block it with these glasses. So bright light in the morning, dimming it down at nighttime. So, my house, it does look like a, old-time photo, development center or submarine or whatever. Like I have red lights at night, My wife is always like trying to turn lights on, I'm trying to turn them off, but she's mostly pretty good about keeping most of her lights on in the hallways and such. But people ask me, like, do you watch any TV? Like, yes, I do get blue light at night, but I'm protecting my eyes and I have everything else very dim. But the light hygiene is critical. Then your sleep environment. It should be like a cave. It should be dark, cool, and quiet, both like sound quiet and EMF quiet. So the Wi-Fi router, I have a special one that basically just turns itself off at like 9 p.m. It doesn't come back on until 6 a.m. And most of my stuff is hardwired, particularly at my office. Everything's hardwired. But your bedroom should be as electrically silent as possible. My phone is way across the room. There's nothing by my head. And my wearables, it's in airplane mode. I don't leave this thing on, pinging my body when I'm trying to sleep. I'm not currently using it because it's kind of fall, but, cool. I keep the room very cool. I usually 68 or lower, but when it gets hot, sometimes I'll throw on a chili pad mattress topper. So there's different vendors that make these things. I personally like the old school chili pad because there's no EMFs coming off the mattress topper. It just has silicone tubes in it that are running chilled water through it. And then you can have dual zones, so if somebody else wants to stay warmer, you can dial it down. I can tell you, if you dial it down to 55 degrees, you'll probably end up on the other side of the bed. So keep it to wherever you're comfortable. And then, I don't, really have anything else in the room other than some white noise from a fan. So, I just set the environment, and then every night, I usually go to bed ballpark around the same time, but I'm extremely strict. I get up at the exact same time, 7 days a week, and if I travel, my favorite city to try to practice this in is in Las Vegas, I just try to stay in St. Louis time. So usually I'm waking up in Las Vegas when people haven't even thought about going to bed yet, and then I'm going to bed at like 7 p.m. Vegas time when people are like, we haven't even had dinner yet. So I'm pretty strict with my circadian biology, and I believe it that much that I don't veer from it. So try to lead that one by example. So biohacking was a quite interesting thing to add into my armamentarium. I did 10 years of training to become a cardiologist. I treated a lot of heart attacks and strokes in my life. I found the functional world probably back in 2012, 2013. At some point, Kristen came and said, you got to come to one of these meetings. Felt completely overwhelmed, found some great mentors, kept teaching myself, learning, find the biohackers, and then add in the quantum biology part from it. So I appreciate your guys' time and attention. And if you ever need anything, always happy to answer that for you.
So, nice to see you all. That is very bright, yes. Thank you, Kristen, for having me here tonight. I've been coming to these, I might be 15 years or so. Did traditional family medicine for years and years, left that in, 2010, 2011, opened my own practice in 2012 called Revitalife. Been, at it ever since. And definitely was an early adapter of the GLP-1s. That's all we had was GLP-1s. So in 2005, Byetta came out. Okay. Now, Byetta, for diabetics, right? I figured out pretty quickly that a non-diabetic would do amazing things. And so early adapter, that's when I could write Byetta off-label for all the housewives who wanted to lose weight, and it was a twice-a-day injectable, okay? No prior auths. Those were the good old days. So that went right through. We could try it out and quickly saw that this was something that worked metabolically in ways we have never seen before, right? And we only had then at that point, the phentermines, the Contrave wasn't out, but the phentermine products and things like that for weight loss. So as I dabbled into quickly off-label use of Byetta for years and years, and then I quickly saw Victoza come out, right? So still once a day. Victoza became Saxenda, which is weight loss version. Then years and years after that, we got Ozempic. Ozempic became Wegovy, and then the big revolutionary change was when 2002, all of those only worked on a GLP-1 receptor, right? So GLP-1 only. And then in short actor, long actor, all that. Then 2002, July of 2002, out came Mounjaro. The coupon that changed everybody's world was a $25 no matter what your insurance said. You could get it for $25 from July of 22 up until July of 23 if you were in the 3-month span to get those scripts. I wrote 3,000 scripts. Yeah, anybody in their neighborhood could get that. And then basically from there on, I saw changes that I've never seen before. So a lot of what I'm gonna show you in slides tonight is definitely things that have been researched, things that are under studies, some things that are, everybody knows on label. So this is going a little more to the off label. Things that we see clinically. Does this have perfect data yet on it? No. But when you do clinical practice, obviously you use your brain and you'll quickly figure out that these are doing things more than just working on weight loss and diabetes. So there we go, beyond diabetes and weight loss. So moving, and basically GLP-1 RAs. So a lot of these really are incorporating more of the Mounjaro world than just the Ozempic Wegovy world, but it'll kind of all be grouped together a little bit. Now, quick review, Mounjaro and Zepbound, how are they different from Ozempic and Wegovy? Very, very, very different. And so when you only work on a GLP-1 receptor, that is primarily those receptors in the gut, right? So anytime you hit GLP-1 only, you're gonna have a lot of gut side effects. When you hit a GIP receptor, which is 67% of what Mounjaro and Zepbound do, they are not a GLP-1, they are a GIP. And a GIP is where the magic tends to happen more with less side effects. So if you look at comparison, so it takes only a Mounjaro 5 milligram to equal an Ozempic Wegovy 2 milligram, okay? Big, big difference where you can see a lot more potency in a GIP receptor activity. So, okay. Everybody wants to talk about brain health, right? But what do we do for that? Well, we do know from a lot of the Bresden protocols that it is about your lifestyle. What does that really mean? How do we do to help that? Therein lies the magic. It is about metabolic health. It's blood flow and blood sugars. Blood flow and blood sugars. It is the key. So at this point, we know the glucose metabolism is a big deal in your brain. And so the changes that we're seeing, Ozempic had a big study. I don't know when that'll be officially released, but it was already showing about a 20% reduction in Alzheimer's risk on that. So GIP, even more magical. So it'll take a while to get that done, but it will be changed. And then Parkinson's, you're seeing some Parkinson's. There's studies ongoing, but you're already seeing some improvement in just motor activity and then also just protection, brain protection. What do we do when you're 50s and 60s to not have Alzheimer's in your 70s and 80s? So this is where longevity world is going to have a major play. And basically, even Brian Johnson's doing, what Mounjaro or whatever now. You know the guy that don't die guy? Don't die. Him. He added it. Okay, addiction, behavior, anybody that's been using these quickly sees. Alcohol use is like, I only drink once a week now. And I can't even get drunk anymore. I look at that stuff and I'm kind of grossed out, right? So you hear that a lot. Wonderful. We know alcohol is not good for us, especially what some people are doing when they're, doing alcohol every night. That is not good. Opioid, through the dopamine pathways, yeah, a little bit. I don't dabble in that a lot myself, and nicotine, I haven't seen a ton of changes there for some people, but I think it definitely changes some of that. It's not hitting nicotine receptor, basically, but it definitely changes the craving and the urgencies. Okay, liver. Everybody's seen liver enzymes just like reverse amazingly. So all these people with fatty liver, quickly you'll see AST, ALTs, especially ALT will be, 80, 90 all of a sudden, and they don't even have to drop that much weight sometimes. But you'll see it reverse pretty quickly, and now all of a sudden you got an ALT in the 20s and 30s. You'll see these labs come back and it's flagged now because it's so low. Like, when did we ever see that? Now, obviously with MASH now, and then you go from MASH, you go to cirrhosis. So at this point, you have intervention that is not officially unlabeled, but you can do things here with these receptor agonists that you could not do at all before, because we just couldn't target that fat deposits in that metabolism. Cardiovascular, Dr. Twyman will be the first to talk about your nitric oxide levels and your vascular health, your endothelial lining. There is nothing I've seen to change that so quickly than especially a GIP receptor. Mounjaro definitely does it a lot quicker, I feel like, than an Ozempic. Obviously, the trials through Ozempic does show about anywhere from a 20 to 25% reduction in MACE. So basically, it's quick. It's not like you have to drop all this weight and do all this stuff. It's that study was within almost 3 to 4 months. So it's very quick. And again, it's because the arterial change that you see, and anybody that's checking blood pressures on these people, we have to pull these meds back. I probably dropped, I don't know how many hypertensive drugs today on people. You drop them in half. You're like, I had 2 patients today. I'm like, do you stand up and get dizzy? Because their pressure's like 105 over, 70 in the office. I'm like, when you stand up and you get dizzy? Oh yeah, I do. I'm like, well, that's like a skinny girl thing. So they're like, skinny girl have problems? I'm like, yep, you got cold hands and low blood pressure. So get your salt out and, drop your blood pressure meds. So it is, and these aren't people dropping 50, 60 pounds. This is just 15, 20 pounds sometimes. But the endothelial changes and the arterial resistance change that you see, it's fast. Heart failure, crazy reversed, 6 months. EF, at an EF 35 up to a 55. Now she dropped some weight during that too. But that would never change without one of these meds. You just can't get that heart muscle to repair. Derm, we see this a lot, obviously, with the PCOS girls and all HS. I used Victoza off-label for that back in the day. Ozempic definitely did it. But I feel like the Mounjaro, Zepbound, tirzepatide world does it even a little bit better. If you look at the mechanism of action here, it's very different for kind of each skin disorder. PCOS, we think it's definitely back over to the insulin system. Then the insulin system changes the ovarian dysfunction. You have less androgens. Less androgens is less HS. Psoriasis is a little different, but you are hitting these inflammatory pathways, and that is probably where the magic happens in some of the eczema psoriasis world. Tirzepatide, I feel like, definitely seems to hit it a little more, but that's your TNF alpha, your interleukin, pathways and your cytokine. Okay, now to the favorite zone. Okay, so what we saw very, very quickly in Victoza world, and I couldn't see it as much of it by I think it was just so short acting, but what I saw quickly in Victoza and Saxenda world is that you could change a PCOS girl's regulation of her hormones very, very quickly. And beyond weight loss, because there's this leaner type of PCOS girl, and there's the more overweight girl type of PCOS. And even in the lean ones, you could use a teeny amount of GLP-1 and basically almost induce a more regular cycle in her. So it definitely changes. When you control insulin dysregulation, you then can control ovarian dysfunction, because the ovaries see high insulin and basically see that and misinterpret, we think, we're not even sure, but they do something to misinterpret that, and then they make more androgens and more testosterone in response to that. That high testosterone then suppresses LH, changes the progesterone production, doesn't create the lining, and stops the ovulation function. So, and it's not always perfect in everyone. There's, some that still cycle, some that don't. But the point is that if you control insulin regulation, you can talk to the ovaries, and hence lies the fertility. there was a study that was Victoza back a long time ago, where they took a group of patients, and now we can't even get some of the fertility stuff. It's just hard to do. So they took Victoza and they put half of the patients on Victoza alone, the other half were on metformin. They were PCOS, and they were doing basically embryo transfers. So IVF girls, embryo transfer, and basically the difference between Victoza, it was an 85% pregnancy rate, metformin, so not even placebo. Metformin was 25%, 85 to 25. And so the biggest thing I always kind of didn't really realize in my practice for years and years was how high this fertility rate became. And so one of the things you always have to say is, okay, you're gonna create normal cycles, you're gonna ovulate in ways you've never done before, so what are you doing to not get pregnant? Or if you wanna get pregnant, that's great. Now, the official recommendation is to be off of the GLP, whichever form you're on for 2 months. But we've had a lot of patients get pregnant through the years. There's never been any issues there, but it's one of those where you have to know, you wanna have that discussion. Are you trying to get pregnant? Are you not? And if you're not, some of these girls have never used a regular birth control because they've never had to. So you do have to have that whole okay, if you're not, this is going to create fertility increase in ways you've never had before. So, and then the fertility for men was more through sperm, mainly in more obese men. So it just created a metabolic control and insulin regulation, and then their sperm counts and motility went up. So, okay, then comes the whole thing. Okay, besides PCOS, where is the magic of these in hormone world? So that's where perimenopause and menopause becomes kind of the wonderland of GLP-1 GIPs, because everything that perimenopause and menopause produces, these help the metabolic side of that. Not the hormone side necessarily, but some of the hormone decline and the symptoms of that decline, it does help some of that as well. So there's some theory that maybe even helps the ovaries, kind of produce hormones a little longer, but that's not been proven. Of course, weight management, the cardiovascular, and the synergy. So when your estrogen declines and you start to get all those symptoms from the weird bloating that you get down here and you're trying to figure out, is that your gut? Or what is that? And they're like, I don't know, it's just like this bloating fluid thing. That's not always gut. That is not intestinal necessarily. That is this strange fluid retention that women do when the estrogen declines. It's like your body's just trying to signal to put down more fat there, and with this strange fluid retention. So that definitely goes away with GLP-1 GIPs, especially GIP. And then just all the other estrogen loss symptoms, the inflammation, the brain fog, all the joint pain, that is very, very helpful with these, again, through that interleukin and TNF-alpha pathway. So lots of times, even if someone can't take hormone therapy because of breast cancer or whatever, you can do a workaround and use these to kind of weave your path if they can't do HRT. Not to mention not gain 22 pounds, which is the average of menopause. That sucks. So most females are not accepting of that, and who's got 22 pounds to gain? Like, who has that? So then, of course, the joint, there's some studies showing maybe possibly even joint protection in there, but the key to it is the inflammatory change. And patients will come back and say, that was amazing, my joints were better, and now I ran out of that, and it's all came back. So it's definitely a change of what they feel. It's definitely an inflammatory change. It's real. They're not making it up. Okay, microdosing, that's the buzzword, right? Everybody's like, I'm microdosing for my longevity. Okay, well, it is a thing, and it's everybody's definition of microdosing is different. In my mind, microdosing doesn't mean necessarily small. It just means it's different than the standard dosing of what everybody's doing for true weight loss, right? So at that point, I would say if you're not trying to lose weight, you're doing some form of microdosing, whether you're maintenance, whether you're using for all these off-label uses, whether that's kind of a microdose form. Now, of course, Eli Lilly suing the Compounding Association, that's going on. Then we've got the, Texas lawsuit. Then we've got Strive being sued, everybody. So getting them, that's a whole nother discussion. Like, I can talk to you in private on that. But that is going to be a thing for a long time. This is going to be a thing. The public demand for this has gone up. Everybody's understanding what these do. The Reddit feeds and the Facebook groups and the you name it, and the telehealth world has created something that we've never seen before. So microdosing for longevity is a thing. If you look at all the benefits that are there, these do things that we can't do through our own diet and regulation. That's just a fact. And then the pipeline. Okay, it's big. Obviously, because there's money to be made here. So 16, it's found 16 different ones coming. They're coming fast. People buying up different companies and stuff. You've got, of course, the one that's coming the quickest probably is retatrutide. That's a 3G receptor that is really added glucagon. But in the end, if you talk to Eli Lilly, it is not about the glucagon added. It is the GIP is in there is 7 times as strong as the GIP receptor activity in Mounjaro. So the GIP is what they're going to hammer in retatrutide. And retatrutide's weight loss is 30% of total body weight reduction, whereas Mounjaro Zepbound is 23%, and Ozempic Wegovy is 14%. So, and then you've got the oral, which is basically Eli Lilly's trying to get that one because they can make a lot of it and get it out there even though the weight loss is not great. And then all these tissue variants that are trying to hold on to your muscle, so they're myostatin inhibitors. And the future will have a myostatin inhibitor with a GIP and a GLP-1 and a glucagon, and peptide world will change forever. So hold on, it's going to be a ride because these will become mainstays of longevity. Yes, it'd be great not to have an injectable, but it's not going to happen. Peptides, these are very long amino acid chains. They typically, if it's any good, it's going to be injectable. And that's just the way it's going to go. And then you can add on your BPC and your ipamorelin and your CJC and epithalon, and you can do it all together. So, yeah. But that's where it's going. It's not. We're not stopping anytime soon there, which is exciting. But I think the crazy thing is that the public is going to be very involved in this as well, as you're already seeing with this lawsuit. Once patients try this, they will do what they need to do to keep their hands on it. So yeah, it'll be exciting. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello. I haven't been in St. Louis since 2008. It's nice to be back. Back in 2008, I did 26 8-hour days, Saturday or Sunday, on understanding gluten sensitivity with about 350 slides or studies, 350 studies in those presentations. And I really enjoyed St. Louis when I was here, and it's nice to be back again. And it's, of course, a very different place than it was back then. Waves of gratitude to James. He's devoted his life to this. There's nobody paying him to do any of this. And he's raising a beautiful family. How's he doing it? I sometimes wonder, how in the heck is he doing it? But he's doing it because he believes so strongly that every one of us has the opportunity to expand and to practice healthcare in the way that we dreamt when we first went to school, right? That's his vision. Thank you, James. Yeah. Yes. All right, here we go. That's my boss. I believe the only way we're going to change the planet is by raising a generation of children that think outside the box. They think for themselves. Because we aren't going to change the direction the world's going in as a society. We aren't going to do it. We're still driving our SUVs. We're throwing more particulate matter into the air. We're doing all the things that we do, trying to make some small changes, but we need paradigm shifts in how we live on this planet. And I don't believe that we're going to do it. So we need children who think outside the box. So I dedicate this talk to him and to all the children of his generation, right? And I have a gift for you. And the gift is I'm giving you all the studies that I'm going to talk about. There's 66 studies in the 90-minute presentation. I don't have time to show them all to you, so I picked some slides to give you a big picture view of this. But I'm giving you all the slides, all the studies. And I think every presenter at every conference, it took my staff 2 hours to put the links together for all of the studies. So it's not hard to do. You know, it doesn't take much so that because you don't have time to go look for any of that. I mean, so if I give you the science, then you can just download it and they say, oh, you know, that study about HDL, well, where is that? And you click the link, there it is. And then you can read it in your own time. So I'm giving you all the studies. There's 14 premises in the all-day presentation, not all day, in the 90-minute presentation. And I picked some of them to talk to you about tonight. This presentation is designed as a paradigm-expanding, thought-provoking experience. I suspect there'll be some new concepts I'm giving you here tonight. It's like, wait, what? What? And I hope that it'll tickle you to want to learn more. That's my goal. For example, reducing LPS levels represents an effective strategy for improving high cholesterol. Wait, what? LPS? You mean the endotoxins in the gut? And if I reduce endotoxins, I can improve high cholesterol? Yes, yes. HDL is the primary endotoxin protein in whole blood or plasma, and HDL-associated LPS is subsequently transferred to LDL and VLDL in a time-dependent manner, meaning the more LPS that comes into your bloodstream, the more HDL you produce, and when that hits a threshold, it gets converted by lipopolysaccharide binding protein to LDL, and then VLDL. It's like, wait, what? What? So I'm giving you the science. And I put the red arrows so that you can look at the title of the studies, because that's another, wait, what? Microbiome-derived LPS is enriched in the perinuclear region of Alzheimer's disease brains? Wait, LPS has something to do with the development of Alzheimer's? Wait, what? So how do you set yourself up for success? Whatever tickles you that you learn about or that you hear of and you want to learn more, what I did was that I took the studies. I took the front page of the study, and I've done this since I opened my practice, Valentine's Day, 1980, and I taped the study to the ceiling of the bedroom, the front page of the study. And I'd go to sleep at night, because someone shared that idea with me. I go to sleep at night, and then I go, oh yeah, that's right. And then sometimes in the middle of the night, I'd have a thought about it. Or sometimes 3 days later, I'm driving down the road, I'd have a thought about that topic. I gave myself permission to think outside the box about some new topic in healthcare. And I recommend every one of you do that. Tape it to the mirror in the bathroom. Tape it to the refrigerator door. Whatever captures your interest so that you dive in, that you just want to learn more, and you give yourself permission to think outside the box. That's the only way I know that you can change a paradigm. Or else it's more of the same with some improvements for efficiency, right? And if you allocate 1 hour a week, just tell your family every Tuesday night after dinner, don't bother me for an hour, because I'm going to learn more about how to do something in healthcare, whatever the topic is. But you allocate 1 hour every week. And the result is, in a few months, you've got this down. You really understand this principle that at first was a, wait, what? When you heard of it. 1 hour a week, and you can do it, because nobody's got time to sit there and learn something to the depth that changes your paradigm, changes how you think, right? So if you allocate 1 hour a week, you get it done. And that's the subtitle of my book, Just 1 hour a week to the best memory, productivity, and sleep you've ever had. Because that's how patients change the way they live their lives. is if you educate them in a way, you show them how to transition by allocating 1 hour a week. This book has 36 different to-dos. When you learn that storing leftover food in a plastic container in the refrigerator, the next day, the chicken's got phthalates in it from the plastic. And you learn that, and then here's 3 URLs to order glass containers. MilesKimball.com, Amazon, whatever the third one is, I don't remember, right? And then so one Tuesday night, you go on, you go to the book, you get the URLs. I like those. And you order 3 round ones, 2 square ones, and 1 for the pie. Pay with your credit card. You're done for the week. But never again will you poison your family with minute amount of toxins because you didn't know, right? And then next week, when you learn that nail polish, the phthalates in nail polish are in your bloodstream in 4 to 5 minutes, and all the science is in the book, in 4 to 5 minutes, and here's 3 organic nail polish companies or cosmetic companies. And then next week, when you learn that plastic blinds on the windows, or any plastic in your house is outgassing phthalates into the air, and you learn that, and then you say, okay, plants absorb 74% of the toxins in the air. And we give you the list of houseplants and show you pictures of them. So every week you do one more thing. If your patients allocate 1 hour a week, they'll change their lives. 6 months from now, they go to church and a friend they haven't seen says, whoa, what happened to you? Well, I learned about the toxins in plastic containers, and I got rid of those, and I got different nail polish, and I got houseplants, and blah, blah. And the person's just overwhelmed. You did what? But at 1 hour a week, you transition. That's how you change your practice, is at 1 hour a week. And you'll learn all this. And this book, I'm proud to say, was number 6 or 36 in all of Amazon. It was number 1 in 8 categories for brain function. It's a great book. It's a great book. So I just love this photo. It's like, he's not going to stop. And I'll show you at the end how he figured out how to get up there for the next one. But empowering your patient's paradigm. So this is so true, isn't it? Medical science has made such tremendous progress. There's hardly a healthy human left. But here's the science behind that. Look at this graph. From 1975 to 2020, the blue line is the number of people over 70 years old. So in 1975, it was about equal, the number of people over 70, the number of people under 70. But lifespans have increased in the last 50 years, which means every disease, most every disease is increasing. Every autoimmune disease goes up 4 to 9% a year. But this is why there's more old people, more years of damage that's accumulating, causing the problems, right? So male life expectancy is almost 79, but their average healthy life expectancy is 62. For females, their average age is 83, but their healthy age is about the same, 62. So 24% of a female's life is lived with disease, a diagnosed disease. Nobody wants that. So there's a difference between total lifespan and healthy lifespan. And when you talk to your patients about this, they get that. They understand that. And that can be the empowerment for them to make changes. 1/5 of an individual's life is lived with morbidity. Every person will understand this concept, and most will agree of its importance to extend healthy lifespan closer to total lifespan. And when they understand that, it empowers them to apply some of the principles that you recommend to them, right? That's the goal, is to extend the total lifespan, or extend the healthy lifespan. I don't know if I can extend your total life, Mrs. Patient. I don't know. We'll find out. I don't know. But I certainly can help extend your healthy lifespan closer to your total lifespan. So where do we begin in educating our patients? The root mechanism at the cause of every chronic inflammatory disease, every one of them, what is it? It's inflammation. The CDC tells us that 14 of the 15 top causes of death are chronic inflammatory diseases. It's inflammation, without exception, with one exception, unintentional injuries, an accident. Everything else is inflammatory. Everything. Chronic inflammatory diseases are recognized as the most significant cause of death in the world today. Next premise, if you pull at a chain, it always breaks at the weakest link. It's at one end, the middle, the other end. It's your heart, your brain, your liver, your kidneys. Wherever your weak link is, determined by genetics and antecedents. Patients understand that. And this is from David Furman at the Buck Institute. He got the contract from NASA, he and his team, to figure out why are our astronauts aging so quickly in space? Astronauts can't go to Mars. We have the technology to go to Mars, but humans can't go to Mars. They'll die on the way. It takes 2.5 years to get there. Why are they aging so quickly? And he figured it out. And this was the paper he wrote on that topic back in 2019. And I saw this graph and I just started drooling. It went on my ceiling for weeks. Because if you understand, and every patient can understand this, one wheel, the wheel on the left, turns the wheel in the center, which turns the wheel on the right, right? So depending on what your environmental triggers are that are setting you off, turning the wheel on the left, you now turn the wheel in the middle, which is chronic inflammation, which then turns the wheel on the right, which is the weak link in your chain, and that's the disease you get for 14 of the 15 top causes of death. It's like, wait, what? It really is that simple to explain to patients. It really helps them to understand why they have to focus on inflammation. That's the key. Framing this technical gobbledygook for the average patient with analogies and visuals helps diffuse the awkwardness of looking at science for the patients. You want them to feel empowered to explore for themselves. How do I reduce inflammation in my life? So I recommend that all of our clinicians use Furman's graph. I'm giving you the article, just print the graph out and give it to patients and say here, and highlight the center wheel and say, this is where we focus, systemic chronic inflammation. I want to talk to you about that every time we see you. So, and I want you thinking about it. Where are the triggers of your inflammation coming from? So, an important concept that we have to help them to understand, and this is a landmark paper that came out in 2003 in the New England Journal of Medicine. Melissa Arbuckle was at the VA, and she looked for people with lupus. She found 132 people with lupus in this one center. And if they're in the VA system, they're veterans. If they're veterans, they were in the armed forces. If they were in the armed forces, they had their blood drawn many times over the years when they were healthy in the Marines or the Navy or the Air Force. What most people don't know is that the government's been saving and freezing most of that blood since 1978. They've got tens of millions of samples of our service people's blood. Well, Arbuckle knew this, so she asked for permission to look at the frozen blood of the currently diagnosed lupus patients when they were healthy in the Navy. And what did she find out? She found out that these antibodies, there are 7 antibodies to lupus, every single one of them was elevated years before there was ever a symptom. Years. And that they increased every year in a predictable way. Every single one of them. So for all 7 antibodies, it was 5 years. Some of the antibodies, it was 11 years, elevated, before there was ever a symptom. Well, that makes sense, because what does elevated antibodies mean? It means you're above the reference range. Well, what does it mean if you have antibodies to your thyroid above the reference range? It means you're killing off more thyroid cells than you're making. What's the normal reference range? Mrs. Patient, you have an entire new body every 7 years or so. Every cell in your body regenerates, some really quick, some really slow, but every cell regenerates. Well, how does that happen? You have to get rid of the old and damaged cells to make room for the new cells. And antibodies are an important part of that process. It's called autophagy. Get rid of the old and damaged cells. Antibodies are a part of that process. So you have a normal reference range of antibodies to myelin, a normal reference range of antibodies to your thyroid, a normal reference range for antibodies for lupus, those 7 antibodies. There's a normal reference range. When you're above the range, you're killing off more cells than you're making. That's what it means to be high. Well, let's see, this is not too high. Let's watch this for a while and see what's happening. What are you waiting for? They're elevated. It's a problem. So this was the graph of all of the antibodies. The zero line at the base is not zero antibodies, it's the normal reference range. So all of these antibodies are elevated 5 years before there was ever a symptom, and 5 years before, and then 6 months to a year later, they got the diagnosis. That's the mechanism of autoimmunity. I have a whole course on that. We did a whole docuseries on it called Betrayal, the Autoimmune Disease Solution They're Not Telling You. That's the mechanism by which autoimmunity develops. Every day, killing off more cells than you're making, killing off more cells than you're making. And eventually, you get symptoms, and then eventually you get a diagnosis. This was her summary of the 7 antibodies of lupus, and she made this up. She just made it up. First, you have normal immunity. Then you have what she called benign autoimmunity. What does that mean? Well, it means they're elevated, but you don't have any symptoms. Then you have pathogenic autoimmunity. Now you have symptoms, and then you get a diagnosis. So, but she came up with this in 2003. So that started the whole world of predictive autoimmunity, understanding what the vulnerable autoimmune conditions are for individuals. You screen for it now. There's a great test by Vibrant, our sponsor tonight, their autoimmune panel. And you do that blood test, you say, oh my gosh, look, you've got 7 different tissues that you have elevated antibodies to. Well, I feel fine. Great, we're catching it early. And then you explore, where's it coming from? That's the whole predictive autoimmunity thing that we can't talk about tonight. But what do you do for all of this? Well, the prodromal period, prodrome means before symptoms. That's the time when you really want to get to these people. You identify early that they're on the stage, they're on the mechanism, they're in the spectrum of autoimmunity, whether it's cardiomyopathy or Hashimoto's or multiple sclerosis. It really doesn't matter. That's just the weak link in their chain. What we want to learn to do is find out what's pulling on the chain. Well, it's always inflammation. So what are the triggers of inflammation pulling on the chain? That's how we educate our patients to begin this whole process of investigation to increase healthy lifespan closer to total lifespan. And when you educate them with this kind of concept in your own language, they get it. They understand. They're ready to go. So how important is the prodromal period? In my experience, it's primary, it's essential, it's required, it's necessary, it's bottom line. You're not going to get patients to change their paradigm of how they live their life if they don't understand this. So we have to educate them. And first, you have to get educated on this for yourself. I recommend that everyone here give your business card to the Vibrant rep tonight before you leave. You know, pretty soon it'll be 8:30, 9 o'clock. You want to go home. It's been a long day. Give her your card. Say, thanks for sponsoring this. And then let her contact you to schedule some time with you in the next month or 2 months. She'll be busy for 2 months if everyone does it, but give her the card, you know, and learn about these tests. And I'll tell you why Vibrant. I'll tell you why in a minute. They sponsored me to come here, which I'm very grateful for. I don't work for them, but I love their technology and what they're doing. So what disease terrifies people the most? You may remember back in 2017 that the articles came out that Medicare is going to go bankrupt because of Alzheimer's in the next 20, 25 years. Well, they put a panel together as a result of that to investigate what are we going to do. And it took them 2 years to come out with their report. This is their report. And I saw the graph in there. It went on my ceiling. It was so great. Look at this. You see this, and this is from the expert committee on Alzheimer's. What are we going to do about Alzheimer's? Well, okay, so what's important here, Tom? What is it? Well, before symptoms. Alzheimer's goes on for over 20 years before there's a symptom. It's called the prodromal period. Wait, what? What? When you start making jokes at 35 or 38 that you're getting old, you don't remember the way you used to, it's no joke. It's the prodromal period. You've killed off enough brain cells by now that you're starting to notice symptoms. You read their report and you go, oh my God, that just makes sense. Of course, that makes sense. And it's non-symptomatic over 20 years. Then you move to walking out into the parking lot and say, what road did I park my car in? Short-term memory loss, right? Or hyposmia. And that goes on for 7 years. So now you've got 25 to 30 years of low-grade inflammation, killing off brain cells, killing off brain cells, killing off brain cells, before you ever have a symptom that you recognize. This is the disease that terrifies us more than any other, for most of us, I think, because we don't know what to do. And as was referenced earlier, there's lots of good science now on what to do about it, but people don't know, oh, I don't need that, I'm fine, I'm just getting a little older. I don't remember the way I used to, haha. No. Vibrant has a test that looks at 53 different markers of inflammation in your brain. And it has 97 to 99% sensitivity, 98 to 100% specificity. Wait, what? And when you do that test, it's going to scare the hell out of you, excuse me, because you'll have 9, 10, 15 different antibodies to your brain that are elevated right now that you don't have a clue about, but they're killing off brain cells, killing off brain cells, killing off brain cells now. Wait, what? Right? And here's a shocking example of how bad the situation is right now. Blue Cross Blue Shield came out with this in February of 2020. No one paid attention to it because that's when the virus came out. No one paid attention to it. But what did they say? They say, we've got a real problem here. In the previous 4-year period, there was a dramatic increase in the diagnosis of Alzheimer's. And the worst was 30 to 44-year-olds. In 4 years, there was a 407% increase in claims to Blue Cross Blue Shield of a diagnosis of Alzheimer's in 4 years. This is the pandemic that nobody's talking about. If everyone in this room did the NeuroZoomer Plus, which I recommend that you all do 3 tests with Vibrant. And it's not because they're sponsoring me. Well, they're sponsoring me because this is my heart talking to you right now. The person whose health you know better than anyone else is your own. And next to that is your spouse. So you do 3 tests for you and your spouse. You do the NeuroZoomer Plus, you do the Wheat Zoomer, because it also identifies leaky gut and LPS, and you do the total tox burden. You do those 3 tests for you and your spouse, even though you think you're fine right now, it'll shock you. Then 1 hour a week for the next 6 months, and then you've got it down. You know exactly what to do with each one of those conditions, right? Give her your card before you leave tonight. You know, just say, thanks so much for hosting this. But that's the pandemic right now. We don't get, you know, I asked my friend, Jill Carnahan, we were out to dinner and I said, Jill, and how often do you get a NeuroZoomer Plus back normal? And she was taking a glass of water like that. Never. I would wager that every single person in this room, if you have adequate total immunoglobulin, so the test is valid, every single person in here will come back positive. Because of the air you're breathing, because of the conventional foods we're eating with the pesticides and insecticides and glyphosate and all that, I would wager every single person in the room. And you just don't know because you've never checked because you feel fine, right? You just don't know. Yeah. How do you identify this ongoing tissue damage? In God we trust, all others require data. That's the premise in my practice. So elevated antibodies to the brain, this is the NeuroZoomer Plus, the categories of the antibodies that they look at. This is the test result, looking at 53 different antibodies in the brain. 53 markers associated with inflammation in the brain. Detecting cognitive impairment early and potentially preventing its progression can significantly improve the quality of life of older adults while also reducing the social, psychological, and economic burdens faced by their families and caregivers. So everything should be made as simple as possible, but not simpler. And the essential question with your patients is if it's chronic inflammation, that's the root mechanism of every single disease, where's the inflammation coming from? Yeah. Your immune system is trying to protect you, Mrs. Patient, your immune system's the armed forces in your body. It's the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, Marines. We call them IgA, IgG, IgE, IgM, cytokines. They're just the armed forces. So why are they being called out? What are they trying to protect you from? That's why you do the total tox burden as one of the 3 essential tests, because it'll shock you to see what's in your body right now in excessive amounts that your body is trying to fight. So Alessio Fasano is at Harvard. Some of you know of Professor Fasano, professor of pediatrics, Harvard Medical School, professor of nutrition, Harvard School of Public Health, chief pediatric gastroenterology, Mass General at Harvard, the director of Celiac Research Center at Harvard, the director of mucosal immunology at Harvard. The guy's got 5 titles. Any one title is a lifelong dream for someone at the top of their game. He's got 5. We think he's going to win the Nobel Prize. We hope so, because it's him and his team that identified the protein zonulin as the mechanism that caused leaky gut back in 1997. And they've published over 350 papers now on that topic. Pancreatitis and leaky gut, cardiomyopathy and leaky gut, and it's all pure science. And now he's so careful about what he says. This paper I'm giving you, this is one that you really have to read. He wrote this paper by himself. That tells you how important it is. All disease begins in the leaky gut. The role of insulin in development of chronic inflammatory diseases. And 14 of the 15 top causes of death are chronic inflammatory diseases. All disease begins in the leaky gut, by the guy who we hope will win the Nobel Prize. He's out of this world. He's really great to read. The activation of zonulin is there to flush out microorganisms. You know, look, Mrs. Patient, you have the same body as your ancestors 10,000 years ago. Kidneys, heart, lungs, liver, they all work the same. And your ancestors were nomads. Before agriculture, they followed the herds looking for food, right? So they pick something up, they smell it, they nibble at it, they eat it. If there were bugs on the food, then we have sentries standing guard in the proximal part of the small intestine. I think of the soldiers at Buckingham Palace with the big hats. They're just dormant. They just stand there. They're dormant, but don't mess with those guys. We have dormant components of our immune system. They're called toll-like receptors. They're just sitting there to see what comes out of the stomach into the small intestine. And if there's any bugs, they get activated to do 2 things. One, they increase zonulin. Within 5 minutes, they increase zonulin. And that's what Fasano's talking about here. Why do you increase zonulin? Because when you open up the tight junctions between the cells, water comes from the body into the lumen of the gut, and it washes out the parasite with the poop. Leaky gut is not bad for you. It saved our ancestors' lives. Excessive leaky gut is bad for you, right? And the second thing, he says, what environmental trigger is the most potent of all, which most of us put very little, if any, attention on. He tells us the 2 most powerful triggers to increase zonulin are gluten and lipopolysaccharides. This is all pure science. It's do the wheat zoomer. Look at how many different components of wheat your body is fighting right now. So how bad is LPS? What level or priority should we put on identifying and addressing it? Let's see what the geeks say who spend their lives studying this. How do they, now I'm half Italian, so I'm up here like this with you right now, but these are the geeks that, you know, well, it's a very serious thing that we should be putting attention on. The first 38 weeks of human life spent in the allegedly protected environment of the amniotic sac are medically more eventful and more fraught with danger than the next 38 years in the lifespan of most humans, okay? So this is Furman's article once again, and he talks about all the toxins in mom and dad, how it impacts on baby in utero. It leaves a genetic imprint on baby in utero. And the result of that is giving birth to a fetus with epigenetic marks that increase the child's risk for obesity, low-grade systemic chronic inflammation, and its associated consequences in adolescence and adulthood. It's one of the reasons why our children, there's so many more kids with autism, so many more kids on antidepressants, on anti-anxiety now than ever before in history, because they were in the womb of toxic moms who didn't know they were toxic. The level of toxicity is going up and up with every generation, impacting on babies' development in utero. 407% increase in Alzheimer's in 30 to 44-year-olds in 4 years. That's what we're up against, and no one's paying attention to this. So I told my wife, I'm doing this for 2 years, honey. I'm going to go speak on any stage, anywhere in the world. I flew in last night from Milan, and I leave at 6 o'clock in the morning. And this is my goal. I hope this is part of my legacy, right? LPS stimulates inflammatory responses and cell cycles in the endometrium. In this retrospective cohort, 1,500 premenopausal women, 24% of them had chronic endometritis, inflammation on the inside lining of their uteruses, endometritis. 1/4 of them. Why? It's all the chemicals that are endocrine-loving chemicals that we're all exposed to in men. I didn't put the study in here. In a French fertility center, men, the glyphosate count in their semen is 400% higher than the glyphosate count in their blood. The sperm's damaged. These factors in turn influence the programming of the immune system of the offspring, potentially leading to a more pro-inflammatory phenotype later in life. Maternal infection is one of the main causes of spontaneous abortion in humans. LPS is associated with adverse developmental outcomes, including embryonic resorption, fetal death, congenital teratogenesis, and fetal growth retardation. This is what we're up against. We're all toxic. We don't know we're toxic. We think this is a normal world to be living in. And when you do the total tox burden, you're going to be startled. You go, wait, what? No, this can't be right. And then you ask for the science behind this laboratory, silicone chip technology, and how accurate it is, and you're blown away. You say, oh my God, I had no idea. I had no idea whatsoever. That's why you and your spouse do, and they've got some package deals for you. It's going to cost you like $200 or $300 to do $1,200 worth of testing. You know, I mean, they're trying to make it easy for a new account to get started and try this with 97 to 99% sensitivity, 98 to 100% specificity. It's a different era now in medicine. LPS is perhaps the most potent stimulator and trigger of inflammation known. LPS is one of the most powerful microbial inflammation indicators, or if I say it like they would, LPS is one of the most powerful microbial inflammation indicators. LPS causes inflammatory response, which results in the degeneration of neurons, synaptic loss, and finally, neuronal cell death. They're trying to say, holy cow, Batman, you know, in their language as geeks. And in this one of the main toxins responsible for inflammation is LPS, and it ranks among the most potent immunostimulants found in nature. So what percentage of your patients should you be checking to see if their immune system is fighting LPS? It's one of the most potent stimulators of inflammation. And 14 of the 15 top causes of death are chronic inflammatory diseases. I want to get back to the basics, you know, just a basic understanding of why we're all getting so sick so much earlier in life and why there's this 20-year gap between healthy lifespan and total lifespan. This is why, at least a strong component of to why. I think I've got 3 minutes. I hope I have 3 minutes. LPS is recognized by the immune system as a marker for the detection of bacterial pathogen invasion and responsible for the development of inflammatory response. Could they say it any stronger? Study after study after study. And I just picked a few out of the 90-minute presentation to show you here tonight. That's why I'm giving you all the studies. LPS is the strongest induction of pro-inflammatory signaling in human neuronal glial cells of any single inducer. Well, wait, and the inflammation in the brain, and this is the strongest trigger for all of that? Yes, look at this. Amyloidogenesis caused by LPS is the most prominent phenomena in the cortical and hippocampal areas. Wait, what? That's another, wait, what? Amyloid, the production of amyloid is because of LPS? That's the most prominent? Yes. The word sepsis is derived from the ancient Greek word sepo, meaning I rot. My mother died of sepsis. That's why I'm a little intense about this. I didn't know about this back then. I didn't know. She was rotting. Why was she rotting? Because LPS is the primary cause of sepsis. And what happens to LPS? It gets into the bloodstream. Well, I'll show you what happens to it. When it gets into the bloodstream, it goes to the peripheral blood mononuclear cells. It goes to the spleen. It goes in the axillary lymph nodes. It goes in the inguinal lymph nodes. It goes in the mesenteric lymph nodes. It goes in the duodenum, into the tissue of the jejunum, into the ileum, into the cecum, into the colon. It's in the brain. It's in the liver. It's in the kidneys. It gets deposited in your tissue. Sepsis is when you cross the line and you can handle no more. And the immune system, in a last effort, is trying to protect you from all of this accumulated toxin that's in your body. Just think about this. 1 hour a week. It'll take you a while, but you'll get this. You'll get this. Immune activation in the absence of bacterial and viral replication? Yes. It's not, you're not getting any more at that point, or you may, but it's not necessary. And there's one last topic I wanted. Does LPS in the tissue go away on its own? No. No, it gets deposited in the tissue and it stays there. Unless you mobilize it to get it out. This fact alone should change the paradigm of how we address the topic of leaky gut, pathogenic intestinal permeability, and the essential nature of a comprehensive educational protocol for our patients of identifying and removing environmental triggers and accumulated toxins. Detox is not an annual event like a spring cleaning that we started with 40 years ago. No, it's an everyday way of life. Because the world's so toxic that we live in now, we have to educate our patients on how to encourage their body to be detoxing on a daily basis. It's a way of life. So there's, okay, I'm gonna bypass all these slides to give you one last concept, and you're getting all the slides so you can review this. That's about testing for wheat sensitivity and testing for the leaky gut. That's fine, but LPS causes a substantial increase in the production of cytokines, chemokines, and the synthesis of a broad group of lipid inflammatory mediators. And that's another, wait, what? LPS causes the synthesis of a group of lipid inflammatory mediators? What the heck are lipid inflammatory mediators? High cholesterol or high LDL is protective against infection and atherosclerosis. It's not widely known that lipoproteins are able to bind and inactivate microbes and their toxins effectively by complex formation. When they do so, LPS is unable to activate the secretion of various cytokines by monocytes. So the body has this system that when too much LPS comes into the bloodstream, HDL gets produced to grab and lock onto LPS. And when they can't make any more HDL to do this, the HDL LPS molecule gets shifted over to LDL. And when you've got this LDL LPS molecule, now the immune system goes after that and you get oxidized LDL. And when you get oxidized LDL, you produce foam cells. So that's part of the mechanism of what's going on for these people. And it's LPS, excessive LPS. That's one of the triggers. LPS that gains access to the bloodstream, for example, from the gut lumen, is bound by various particles. The majority, 60%, circulates bound to HDL, but also with lower affinity to other lipoproteins. This is like, wait, what? What? And I really hope that I've captured you at least enough to where you want to learn more. The gift for you, of course, once again, if you go to my website is thedoctor.com. Don't spell the word doctor out, thedr.com/LPS. All the slides are there. All the studies are there. You can download all the studies so you can read about any aspect of this that you want, right? And it's all free to you. I started with this one. So what did my son do to expand his paradigm? He looked at this thing. He looked at it Then he called the nanny over, and she hands him a new piece, and then he goes, "Da, come." He called me, and he had me lift him up. I lifted him up, and he put it up there. I had never done that before. He thought of that by himself. He figured out how to get another piece up there, right? We can figure out how to extend healthy lifespan closer to total lifespan. So take care of yourselves. Make sure to tell those important to you how much you love them. And thank you so much.